feels good inside. Welcome to the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one rated sportsbook app out there. I am your host, Rudolph, joined as always by AJ Haefele. And this is the show that everyone seems to like, one that we're finally getting to for the Avs coming into the 2020-2021 season, or I guess really, are we just going to call this the 2021 season because they're not going to play in 2020?
Yeah, it's just going to be 2021.
So coming into the 2021 season, then.
You should really just call it the 21 season.
The 21 season. There you go. Yeah.
Because every time you say 2021, it sounds like you're starting to say 2020. And it's just like.
Just stop even mentioning half of this year.
Yeah, it'll be the 21 season.
There you go. The 21 season. The Avs, however, have 20 spots on their roster any given night to play in a hockey game. And that's what today's episode is going to be about. How do you organize those 20 spots? It's not even fully clear who you give all of those 20 spots to, but don't worry. We're going to answer that question for you here today on the show. Let me start with the obvious. Philip Gruber, number one goaltender. Easy?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Knock that out.
Yeah.
Nathan MacKinnon.
Obviously, assuming health here.
Sure, of course.
And I think we've seen Gruber on social media. Hasn't he been like...
He seems pretty fine, yeah.
Yeah, hadn't he been like balling out, going out and doing all kinds of crazy fun activities? Like, he seems like he's okay.
So, expectation is he'll be okay, especially as the season seemingly continues to get pushed back. The later, the better for the Avs injured guys. But Gruber, number one goaltender, Nathan MacKinnon, number 1C. I think those two things are pretty much set in stone no matter what. The question is everything else.
Yeah. I mean, like, there's, like, Kadri at 2C.
I would say that's pretty set. He's definitely a center. The Avs don't really have an heir apparent to the 2C on the roster. So, yeah, I'd say that's a good answer. But,
yeah.
What? I mean,
and like 2G.
Yeah, and Francouz. That one's pretty obvious too. So centers and goalies, the Avs are easy. Easy work. But
yeah, half of the centers anyway.
I don't think third and fourth is that difficult either. But
no, but they're points of contention. Or points of conversation.
They could be contentious. Let's start with the top six though. 4 winger spots. You're pretty confident who are in the winger spots, that being Landy, Rantanen, Saad, and Burakovsky. But how do you organize them to make the best team possible on the ice?
Very carefully.
Good answer. Good answer. The conversation for basically all of last season was, how committed should you be to the three-headed monster? As I got the shirt on right here. Go buy one at the DNVR locker.
I mean, pretty committed, I think.
Yeah.
After last season and the additions that they've made, I think they could be pretty committed if they wanted to. They have more flexibility this year than they've ever had. 2 years ago, it was these guys have to be it, right?
Yep.
It was funny because
nothing else 2 years ago. Yeah.
The 17-18 season, you remember they didn't start the year together.
Sven
Andrighetto was the guy on that left wing.
He was in the top 6 until they realized that he just couldn't hack it in the top 6 anymore.
Well, he was there until game 10 when it just wasn't going very well, and then they got blown out, 7-0 in Vegas.
Yeah.
And then came back the very next night, they played Chicago in Denver and put the three-headed monster together, and they smoked the Blackhawks that night.
Yep.
And that was sort of that game against Chicago was like the beginning of this Avalanche era.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty accurate. The rise of Nathan MacKinnon And then, a few weeks later, they end up trading out Matt Duchene, and everything starts going for them.
And these guys became the face. The three-headed monster became the face of the Avs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, to be honest, can Burakovsky play on that top line? Yeah, we saw that.
Yep.
He could definitely slot in there from time to time if you want to give it a different look. Could newly acquired Brandon Saad do it? Totally. He could pop up there and play on that left side too.
And this is something we've talked about before. Realistically, with the wings they've got, again, assuming health, McKinnon's your 1C, Kadri's your 2C. The other 4 dudes, you can just kind of throw out there with whoever. If you're in position A where you need a goal, you go full offense and throw out McKinnon, Rantanen, and Burakovsky or something. If you want a defensive shutdown line, you can throw Saad, Kadri, Landeskog.
Yeah.
You want to mix that up a little bit. You feel like there's a little bit too much shooting when you put Burakovsky on the top line. You can throw Landeskog up there. You can throw Saad up there. Whatever works.
Yeah. Where I like the three-headed monster in this upcoming season more than in previous years is that it feels like there are legitimate options, but this is now like dangerous because you aren't losing nearly as much when those guys get off the ice.
Sure.
And so it's like, okay, load them up with those are your 3 best forwards. They just happen to all be left wing, center, and a right wing. Great. Like go. That it makes perfect sense. And then your next three best forwards also happen to be 2 wings and a center. Perfect.
When you are going up against a team like Nashville, who say they throw out Yossi and Ekholm or something at you to shut down your top pair, and then you roll out your second line, which is still very quality against a weaker defensive pair.
Yeah, it would be Yossi and Ellis against the top line, and then Ekholm and Fabro, and it's like, and you want to you'll take your chances right now. Ekholm and Fabro against Kadri, Saad, and Burakovsky.
Sad Kadri, Burakovsky should be licking their chops against Fabro.
Right. Even against Ekholm, you're like, like you're good, but you're not enough.
Right. So that's where the depth is created. Sure.
Yeah, and there are going to be there are going to be nights where Colorado's second line rolls out there and is just as competitive as the opposing team's top line.
Yep.
If Kadri, Brandon Saad, and Andre Burakovsky was your top line, it's kind of an underwhelming top line, but you're still talking about 3 guys who score 20 goals a year for you.
It's not something that Bednar does very much as far as line matching is concerned, but particularly when the Avs are on the road, when the other team has last change, you are going to struggle to match lines against this team. If you want to try and get your top line against the Avs bottom 6, you're gearing yourself up for 2 brutal shifts coming up from the Avs top 2 lines.
Right. And like this isn't even getting into the quality depth that they have on the third line.
Yeah.
Because as much as we've talked about how JT Compher is kind of just as a 3C. First of all, let's be honest, there are significantly worse options out there.
Absolutely.
And that's important to remember because it's like, oh, well, maybe the Avs don't have the world's best third line. But it's still going to be pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Because that Nichushkin, Compher, and Donskoy trio right now, which is where I think it's sitting currently, that's still going to be a line that's going to do some work.
Compher and Donskoy are middle 6 dudes, right?
Yeah.
Nichushkin, probably more of a legit third liner than a middle 6 guy. But look, he's shown an ability to score. Obviously, Nichushkin's numbers we've talked about a bunch are elite defensively.
Right.
And you provide him with 2 line mates that are 35-ish point guys most years.
Mm-hmm.
Is that third line going to be elite? No. Is that third line going to get the job done every night for you? Probably. I
think if you feel if the third line wins its head-to-head battle 70% of the time, you're feeling really, really good.
Yeah.
And I think that's a reasonable expectation. They're not going to do it every night, but I mean, nobody does it every night, you know? Like no line goes out there 82 times and like wins their matchup 82 games, right? Like you have bad nights.
Yep.
But their bad nights, their downside is going to be mitigated by the fact that when those guys aren't going, they're not actively hurting you. They're just not doing a lot.
They're a line that you can put out there and they're not going to get caved.
Right. And especially the mixture of the three of them, I think will be in play. I think I'm like, that's where I think the season starts. It kind of makes sense to start it there. But ultimately, like that's not a hard set and forget.
Yep.
And that's really the thing that I think makes this forward core as dangerous as it is that you can move guys around. You know, if Burakovsky goes into one of those slumps that we see him go into, where he's not fully engaged, Donskoy takes a spot.
Yep.
And then you're talking about, hey, how is Burakovsky going to get himself out of there? He's going to make some plays on that third line. And that just makes that line a little bit more dangerous that night. So and then there's the fourth group, which
right. And let's start it this way, and we'll get into the other guys in a bit and how they fit in or how they can change the lineup. But for right now, let's assume that the fourth group is the Belmar, Calvert, Jost.
Yeah.
You have that as your fourth line. However you want to mix it, presumably Belmar in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fourth line. Calvert probably could even... Calvert definitely comfortable there. Could probably be playing up a line if you needed.
Well, and the way Bednar uses it is whichever. It's not like a hard third and fourth line. It's more of a whichever line is going that night is going to see ice time, and depending on game situation, if they're trying to protect a 1-goal lead, you'll see. It's a fair expectation that Chushkin switches spots with Jost. And they have a no mistakes defensively fourth line.
Yep. What are you asking out of it too? If you want to play an offensive third line, you know, you could look more at a Jost potentially, depending on how you're feeling on any given night.
Yeah. And that's what you're talking about with game situation, because the way, and one of my favorite things about Bednar as a coach is the way that he coaches two situations.
Yep.
And it's not like, here are hard set lines and you have an offensive zone face off. You have your top line out there. Occasionally he'll throw Sam Girard out there next to Cale Makar.
We'll talk about it heavily on the defensive side.
Yeah.
Sure.
And you can do that defensively and to try and close games out. You can use I think that's where Val Nichushkin really separates in terms of value in that bottom six. Is that he could easily take the place of a guy like a Burakovsky. You put Saad, Kadri, and Nichushkin out there in the last 90 seconds for a defensive zone faceoff. You just load up on really good defensive players. Yep. You have your best faceoff guy. You give yourself the best chance to clear that puck.
Yep.
And I think that's I think that's where the versatility.
Yeah.
Of
the correct word for this lineup.
Yeah.
Versatility.
That's where the versatility of the forward core is really going to be key, is that they can coach to whatever situation they end up in. If you're down by a couple of goals, that fourth line's not going to help you in terms of scoring, but they're going to bring a ton of energy. Calvert's going to go out there and he's going to rock some dude.
I mean, we even see Bednar play to the situation then. If the Avs are down a couple of goals, he'll actively double shift McKinnon with the fourth line wingers.
Yeah, he'll sneak out McKinnon on that fourth line and just try and take advantage of it, because it's like, well, now Nathan McKinnon's out there against a bunch of borderline NHL players.
Right.
You know, those guys are pooping themselves as they just try to survive the next 45 seconds.
Yeah, it's impressive how deep this team has gotten. We do need to take our first period break. First of all, appreciate you listening, Justin. All y'all out of state guys, if you're ever in town and heading down to the bar, just hit me up and I'll happily grab a beer with you if you're interested. We appreciate all y'all, whether you be in Colorado or out of state or around the world. I know we have some European listeners too, so shout outs to all y'all. We appreciate you. We are also sponsored by Green Mountain Dental Group, the best family dentist here in the Denver metro area, just 15 minutes from downtown over in Lakewood, close to where I grew up, actually. And they provide an awesome service. When you get a cleaning, x-ray, and exam, you'll get a free Sonicare toothbrush just for taking care of your teeth. It's an amazing electric toothbrush that makes your life easier when it comes to brushing your teeth. So head on over to Green Mountain Dental Group today and schedule your cleaning, x-ray, and exam. They'll take care of you top to bottom. They'll even send you reminders about when your scheduled event is, as well as checking up on you after whatever work you get done. And of course, Breckenridge Brewery, because you need something to drink after you've taken care of your teeth. Head on over to the DNVR bar where you can get 8 different types of Breckenridge brew on tap, or you can go to the Source, the farmhouse down in Littleton, where they have dozens of flavors that you can try. Or, of course, for you out-of-state guys, you can use the Breck Beer Locator online to find a liquor store that has it near you. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook with Rudo and AJ. So, are we assuming that this is the opening night lineup for the forwards, AJ? Top 6 being what it is, and then Jost, Belmar, Calvert being the fourth line, I guess, really is the part that's going to be up for contention.
Yeah, I think that there's a conversation about, and we'll back up here. I'll start here.
Sure.
Whatever Devon Taves' contract ends up being is going to play a role in this.
Just based on how they manage the salary cap, sure.
Yeah, because they've got, the $5.9 million to spend right now?
Yep.
If that ends up at 4.5, that's different than if that ends up at 3.8.
Yep. That's essentially an ELC difference.
That's
right there.
Exactly. That's Logan O'Connor right there.
Yep.
So that's the conversation. That's the difference. Is those guys that will be a consideration when talking about the opening night lineup. Sure. As the season gets going and as the daily salary cap, the way that it gets calculated,
people get injured and you have more space and whatever.
Well, and even then, even if not halfway through the year, they'll be able to add another guy to the roster easily.
Yeah,
they might have to start the roster at 22 players, which they've done before. And this is a team that has taken advantage of the Eagles being right up the road.
Mm-hmm.
So if they want to call somebody up, whatever, if they're both in Denver at the same time, it's very easy for them to abuse that system. It's like take advantage of their situation.
All the other teams with close by teams do it. So.
Yeah, exactly. Abuse has such a negative connotation for obvious reasons. That's not how I mean it. It's just that they take advantage of the system.
Yeah,
and for right now, that's I'm telling you, Bowen Byram's going to get a look, and so you have to add his salary in there.
So that's a $925 right there.
It's like. It's not. It's like $894, I think.
Is it that low for a 4th overall pick?
Yeah.
Wow. I figured it'd be $925, but nonetheless, $900K, call it whatever.
Yeah. There's no difference. Like no meaningful difference between
less than $100K from the cap. It doesn't matter.
Right. We're talking about a $30K difference here.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're gonna see Bowen Byram at some point. 9-game trial, beyond that, whatever. Like Byram will decide that fate. But I think we're going to see him. And how they make that work on the defense, that's one of the big questions coming into this. Are they willing to sit Ryan Graves, who they just gave 3 years to? Are they willing to sit Ian Cole, who's one of their veteran guys? This is obviously a lot easier if Eric Johnson's not healthy to start the season. We don't know the timeline of his return and the extent of his injury and all of that. We don't know. It's purely speculative on our part that he wouldn't be ready for the start of the season because we haven't been told otherwise. But because we haven't been told otherwise, it's an open question mark.
Yep. Very true. It's not something that has a set answer. And we talked about this a little bit when the Avs went out and acquired Taze.
Yeah.
Seems like it would make a lot of sense to drop that guy into your top 4 at the start of a year where EJ isn't ready to go.
Yeah. It would be, I mean, if EJ is not ready, where Taves fits in the lineup is still unknown. I mean, we don't know what Bednar wants to do, and there isn't like a clear-cut, obvious answer with or without EJ.
Yep.
Even with EJ, you put Taves next to Johnson. Are you putting Girard and Makar together? Because as much as we love talking about turn and burn, their actual on-ice results just weren't very good last year.
Their underlying numbers are kind of bad.
Yeah, like they really were not very good together last season, and that doesn't necessarily carry over year to year. But especially 2 young guys who are rapidly improving, do they figure out how to play together? But if they do, then I think that's an easy top 4. With Erik Johnson, right? I mean, would have...
I mean, I love the idea of putting Taze and Makar together, but...
And then Girard and Johnson?
Sure.
And then
Graves and Cole or whatever is left.
Yeah. I mean, I would probably go Byram and Cole.
Sure.
And again, this is just to see if Byram's ready to go.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's probably my ideal lineup would be Taze Makar, Girard Johnson, Byram Cole. And then if Johnson's hurt, you just throw Graves in as well.
I mean, then you're running back Graves and Makar.
Right, exactly.
And I think that's probably where they start anyway. Realistically, yeah. I think that's probably where they're going to start. Graves and Makar, Taves in with Johnson if they're healthy, and then
whatever, Byram, Cole, or whoever.
Yeah.
I guess
Byram and Girard would be fun.
Byram and Girard would be fun. I don't know if I'd trust it, but it'd be
fun. No. That's an 85% offensive zone face-off.
Yeah,
pairing.
Right. Exactly.
But when they do, if they do get the puck in defensively, either one of those guys.
That puck is going one direction from
fully capable of breaking that thing out. Yeah, that would just be we're headed there anyway.
We are.
We're headed to seeing the Avs pull something like this anyway.
They just aren't quite there yet, probably.
Yeah. It's just the unknown of Bowen Byram remains. And you can't discount Connor Timmins is also going to be in training camp where he's arguably played his best hockey.
Right. That's the other side. And this is a lot more the case within the defense than the offense. I think there's probably a little bit of a case on the offensive side, but on the defense, you're realistically talking about a position battle for spots in the lineup. Whether it be Graves probably has a very inside line to starting in the lineup, but him and Cole could move into a rotational 7th D type spot if Byram and Timmins show up and play great in camp. It's just the reality of there are going to be spots that are earnable in training camp this year on the defensive side. Expectations for deeper guys aren't very high, but you know what? If Gilbert shows up and has a really, really good camp, he's probably moving himself up the call-up list at very least.
Yeah, definitely.
So the depth is once again there, much like the forward core. The depth is there on the defensive side, and the problem for the Avs here is a good one to have. In which defenseman do we play on any given night?
It's which young guy do you play?
Yeah,
because it's at forward. You want to find opportunities for Martin Kaut and Logan O'Connor, Shane Bowers. You want to find opportunity for Bowen Byram, Connor Timmins, and look, you got Dennis Gilbert. I think he's probably just more of an AHL guy than we've talked about him like being in the mix here, and
I don't think he's really in the mix, but I do think he's more of an injury call up than you do.
I think I would have him probably like 9 or 10 on this list somewhere.
Yeah, see,
it kind of just depends on Byram long term or not. Because if Byram's on the team all season, that's just one more guy in front of him.
Well, what's your call up list then? Because like you have Byram and that makes 7, right?
Yeah, and then I would stop at 7, and then
you have Timmins probably.
Yeah, Timmins is easily first, and then it's either Gilbert or McDonald.
Because it's pretty easily Gilbert for me over McDonald. I know you've already talked about how you could see McDonald as an extra D for this team, and he has the added benefit of playing forward as well.
Yeah, and that's like if they go on, we don't know what next season's travel schedule looks like.
If they're on like brutal road trips.
Yeah, if there's a 7-game road trip or something, Jacob McDonald as the extra call up makes a lot more sense because his ability to play both forward and defense
and again
saves you money.
This is where exactly saves you money. This is where the cap comes into play again.
Yeah.
If all of a sudden the Avs have no cap space, well, turns out having a 21-man roster with Jacob McDonald that can play forward or defense for you is an easy way to save money.
Yeah. I mean, if Gilbert pans out, that's great. Like,
yeah,
I'm not discounting Gilbert and saying he can't be a factor. It's just that for right now, I don't know that he's much of one in like the opening night conversation. As the season goes on, guys get hurt.
I guess I should have clarified that.
He definitely comes in to play at that point.
I don't think there's any chance that he makes the opening night roster, barring like injury catastrophe or something. Yeah.
For once, the defense is just a little too good.
Yeah.
But that's like with Gilbert, like he's only 23 years old. This is not like a 26-year-old, this is not like when they got Mark Alton. It was like, okay, this is who he is.
He's younger than Graves was even. And he's a guy that has Chicago was a bad defensive team, but he does have NHL games under his belt.
He's got a fourth of a season.
Yep. It's a whole lot more than Graves did when he came to the Avs is all I'm saying.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's a guy that makes perfect sense as a 7th defender
down the line. Yeah. Even
next year, say Cole leaves in free agency and they lose Graves in expansion. Well, Byram and Timmins slot in right there. And then Gilbert is your 7th guy, like pretty easily.
Yep.
And again, considering his age, I don't think it was any accident he worked his way into that trade.
Well, I think when you look at Gilbert, you see him as a pretty prototypical 7th D that you can get some consistent defense out of. Not going to help you a lot on the offensive side of the puck, but someone you can go to and not worry about the ups and downs as much.
Yeah, and he's got that physical element that kind of gives you a different look.
Yeah, that's
where
true.
Depending on who's playing, if you're out on the road and Gilbert's there, with you, and I guess you could even be at home. It doesn't really matter where you are. Ian Cole's a little bit banged up, but you want that physical presence on defense. Gilbert's an easy drag and drop guy in there. Like that's what they got. They kept that presence. Like Anton Lindholm was also a physical defensive defenseman. Anton Lindholm was he was just 5'10" and constantly gets himself hurt playing the way that he does. Gilbert is more suited to that kind of punishment and to take that kind of beating. And because of that, it'll be easier to slot him into certain situations that you're looking for, and when a PK guy goes down, Gilbert is a PK guy that you can slide into rotation there. Like he has an organizational fit. It's just, you got to get to him.
It's just when you have 9 NHLD, you have 9 NHLD.
Yeah, like you're just a little bit too deep for that guy right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Johnson's hurt at the start of the year. It's one run closer. Johnson gets hurt. They don't keep Byram. He's absolutely on your NHL roster at some point.
Yep. That's the other part of this conversation is what do you do with Connor Timmins as the season goes on? We've talked already about how look, he's probably ready for the NHL, but can he stay healthy?
Yeah, I think where he needs to probably play 20 or 30 games in the AHL, and it has nothing to do with development.
Yeah.
It has everything to do with the team being comfortable that he can take a hit.
Yep.
Because it wasn't like the Cogliano hit in the playoffs.
Particularly big or anything.
It wasn't predatory. It's not dirty. It's not. It's something that he's going to get hit like that 10 times a game.
Yep.
Moving the puck up the boards and a guy just finishing his check and skating away. You have to be able to handle that.
Yep.
You just have to. And if he can't handle that, then he's got to figure that out. And I'm not saying that if he has concussion symptoms or whatever, he needs to be honest about them, because that's way more important.
Obviously.
But so I'm not sitting here saying he needs to be lying about if he's feeling it or not. But if it's not a concussion thing and he's just uncomfortable or whatever, like, he's got to find the line between where he feels comfortable playing and is being honest about being injured.
Yep.
That's an impossible line for those guys, especially in a league that adores toughness the way that it does.
Yeah.
But he just has to find it. Like, I don't know what else to say. He has to find it.
He does have to find it. We can take our second period break there with Chevalier Mortgage. Mike and Virginia Chevalier are not only diehard Broncos fans, but they're proud CSU alums as well, and have even supported us as DNVR members for a long time. They're a husband and wife team with over 15 years of financial service experience. You can visit them at DNVRmortgage.com, and when you go over there, you can enter to win a free DNVR shirt or hat. You can pick which one you want if you do win, but more importantly, get set up with a free consultation to discuss all of your options. Again, that's DNVRmortgage.com. Since your home is likely to be one of your largest assets in your mortgage, your largest debt, they believe it's vital to consider your full financial picture when purchasing a home. This includes considering your short and long-term planning goals, your investments, as well as your tax situation. Mike and Virginia will work tirelessly to find the best loan for your situation, so be sure to visit them and enter to win for that free DNVR shirt or hat at DNVRmortgage.com and get set up with that free consultation. Michael Chevalier, NMLS 1931006, Virginia Chevalier, NMLS 1910631. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one rated sportsbook app out there. Rudo and AJ chatting. The topic we've passed over here, Martin Kaut. Not that long ago, this is a guy that we were talking about should be everyday player in the Avs lineup. They actively maintained his ELC to get an extra year out of him. The expectation was to put him in the NHL this year. And I think we probably both agree that he ends up in the NHL this year pretty easily.
Yeah.
But him being on the opening night lineup doesn't seem feasible anymore.
Like, being on the opening night roster,
sure, but not in the lineup.
Yeah, can easily see it. But then, you're having the awkward question of, like, do you want him in the AHL playing every night, or is it now, after 2 full seasons playing in the AHL,
right?
Is it now more valuable for him to be practicing every day with the Avs
and getting rotated in when possible?
Yeah, and then just waiting for an opportunity to play a guy, Tyson Jost has a tough night because he's the only guy that I can envision them just healthy scratching at this point. But like, a guy has he's just waiting his turn, either injury or a bad night.
Right.
And he's just kind of lying in wait. Or is Logan O'Connor the more valuable? Just throw him in there, play him 8 minutes a night. You're very comfortable with what Logan O'Connor is. You're not so much worried about further developing him as you are just using him as is. And then Kaut is down in the AHL, still theoretically developing and playing. Or do you want Kaut pushing himself a little more every day, being in the NHL, being in the NHL room, in the room with the Avs, working and getting comfortable with the guys and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All those different aspects to it that we always overlook when we say, when we just talk about, it's better for that guy to play 20 minutes a night in the AHL than it is for him to sit on the bench in the NHL. But at some point that stops being true.
And knowing Kaut especially, he is a guy that definitely benefits from some consistency around him.
Being in a rhythm is important to him.
Exactly. And being in that NHL locker room, even if he's not getting into games, is something that a player like that, I think, can benefit from pretty significantly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the question the Avs have to answer with him. You're correct. And I tell you, I think he should be on the NHL roster pretty much, period.
I at this point, like, LOC is, you're feeling like that's a huge win for you. Maybe not huge, but a good win for you.
Yeah.
You got you signed an undrafted guy, came to camp for you. Has been good.
You've gotten NHL games out of him.
Yeah. And you're hoping has an NHL spot. Yeah. That McKinnon was pushing for Barron. I think Joe said that on draft night.
Yeah.
So,
and it's no surprise that all the Eastern Canada boys are tight.
All the Maritimers want to play with the Maritimers because they all work out together and they all skate together and they all practice together. And it's like, okay.
Yep.
I've been surprised by how excited Avs fans have been about that. But whatever. It's more like fun fact than meaningful. But, if McKinnon had been skating out with a bunch of WHL kids and he liked what he saw out of one of those kids, he probably would have been like, draft Braden Schneider.
Right.
Yeah.
So they don't see that many draft kids up close and personal when you're an NHL hockey player. You've got other work to do a lot of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, with when it comes to like O'Connor and what their expectations should be for him, I think that it's 14th guy.
Yeah.
And if they can't afford the 14th guy to start the year, that's fine.
Yep.
I'm not sure what his waiver status is this year.
I believe he's fine. I don't know.
He is. He's still fine.
Yeah, he was young enough when he signed.
Yeah. Because I knew he's right on that edge. He's got to be like right there, man. Because that would be something that I would consider too. Is that if he's waiver eligible,
you can move him up and down. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to. I would just be just a touch uncomfortable. Like every organization has a Logan O'Connor, but with the way that people have shifted so much towards looking for specifically speedy guys that like to hit.
Yep.
And O'Connor's AHL numbers have been good enough that if they've been paying, an organization's been paying any attention at all to the Eagles, like that's one where a Pacific Division team that sees Logan O'Connor against their AHL team all the time, you've got to keep an eye on. Like would be. You can imagine the Edmonton Oilers claiming Logan O'Connor in a heartbeat is what I'm saying.
Edmonton Oilers would 100% claim him and say, this dude scores 6 shorthanded goals on us every year in the AHL. Just play him on the PK.
So that's where it's like when his waiver status comes into the conversation, him becoming a full-time Av
I don't know about that, Cygnus. If you get Calvert level production out of O'Connor, you've performed a miracle.
Yeah, well, yeah. Then maybe we need to chill out on this whole the Avs can't develop anybody thing.
Right, exactly.
Because they will have taken an undrafted kid and turned him into a legit like third-ish, fourth liner guy.
Yep. That's if you're playing
if a guy is gonna outscore in the NHL, his college production, you've really got to find on your hands.
You're hoping for like Belmar level production out of O'Connor if he's an everyday player. But
like he's got the shine right now because he had a good 4 games against Dallas.
Right.
But that's like we also had him we saw him in the regular season for like 20 games and he had 2 goals.
2 goals, and The way that AJ described him that I thought was excellent was he has that exact feel of, he tries real hard and always gets close into the puck battles, but he's never actually winning any.
Yeah, he's better than Tynan in that way, in that and I always feel like I pick on Tynan for this because I do. But like that was the thing that I noticed about Tynan last year. I used to always say it to Evan is that he was Captain Close.
Yep.
He would always get so close, and then the puck would,
not quite go the Avs way.
Yeah, and then if you were just watching it, if you were just casually watching the game, you're like, man, that guy's involved in a lot of stuff, but it's just because he got close a lot.
He's everywhere, but he's never actually accomplishing anything.
Right, like you start having the conversation of like, okay, but is he being effective? And the answer just keeps being no.
Yeah,
and you're like, oh gosh, okay. And like with O'Connor, I think that there's a small jump left in his game in the NHL.
Yep.
But really, that guy is your prototypical 13th guy. I mean, if he's done developing, he's a 13th guy. And like, that's okay. Again, he was undrafted. This is already a pretty big win for Colorado.
Yep. 100%. So I'm very happy with the Avs depth. It's about making the right decisions now.
It's just, yes, that's a great way to put it, because you know that there's going to be temptation. We're sitting here talking about Martin Kaut, Logan O'Connor, and it's going to be Kiefer Sherwood who makes the opening night roster.
Mika Salamaki is their 13th forward all of a sudden, and it's
like,
oh boy.
And you're like, dude, this guy, we know, like he has like 200 games played in the NHL. We know this guy sucks.
Yeah, basically.
Mika Saxamaki.
Mika Saxamaki.
Got him. Hadn't even played for the Avs yet, and I'm already dogging on him.
Well, based on last off season, that means he's guaranteed like a 30-point season after we bop Nichushkin. So.
Yeah. But yeah, like that's and they brought in a ton of those guys. They brought back Tynan, they brought back Dries, they brought back Megna.
Yep.
All of whom played for the Avs last season. So you have those guys. Like we get very prospect tunneled because the young and the shiny, right? Like
for sure.
You're always talking yourself into, well, maybe that guy could do it. You never know. Maybe that guy's got it. You never know. And it's like, look, like, yeah, maybe Kiefer Sherwood really is waiting to break out, and this will be the situation where he blows up and they get something crazy. But like, you've invested a lot of time and a lot of energy into Shane Bowers and Martin Kaut and even Logan O'Connor and Nick Henry, and like you
got to get something out of that.
Yeah, those guys should be front of the line because you've invested in them.
Bowers is the most interesting one there, as I see chat mentioning it as well. 0% chance that guy makes the opening night roster unless something crazy happens.
I won't say 0 because, like Evan said,
I know Bednar loves him, but
that's the thing, man, is that like he just loves that guy.
I just don't know how you can put him ahead of Kaut and Logan O'Connor, given that they have NHL games.
If he makes it ahead of Kaut, I will be so confused.
Yeah, but look, the hope with Bowers, he's going to probably start in the AHL, and you hope by midseason he's basically top of the call-up list.
Yeah, you hope that what Bowers does this year is kind of what Kaut did last year, where he gets NHL games.
Yeah.
And he shows that he belongs.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe not necessarily, he doesn't have a 9-game anything to worry about. Otherwise, Kaut would have ended up playing
more. Yeah.
However many games, right? Bowers won't have that problem. There won't be any like, well, he's got the 9 games to consider. No, none of it. So as long as he gets into the NHL and he plays well and he shows well and he takes his opportunity and run, like, that's on that part will be on him. But for now, he has to show that he's worthy of that call up. He has to play well. And he had such a good second half of the year. He had the long point streak. that there's plenty of reasons for optimism that it's happening, that it's coming. It's just a matter of getting there.
Cygnus, to your question, Calvert expires at the end of this season. Belmar expires at the end of this season. That's Kaut and Bowers right there pretty easily.
Yep.
Loke is still the 13th forward, so you're not exactly replacing anyone with him.
Yep.
And then Newhook, you just drop in and you sort it out. If the Avs lose a forward in expansion, problem solved.
That's it. They lose JT Compher in expansion. Alex Newhook is your 3C.
Yep.
Problem solved.
So that's kind of the long-term outlook as far as those prospects are concerned. I think we're wrapping up here. AJ, I did have a trivia question for you.
No, jeez.
There are 4 teams in the Western Conference who do not have an ex-Avalanche somewhere in their organization. Can you name any of them?
Anywhere in the organization?
Yeah.
Let me look at a list of the teams in the West.
Yeah, you're good. I'll give you some time. I'll tell you the teams in the East.
Are there any in the Central?
There is 1 in the Central.
Wow.
So,
okay. Is Anaheim one of them?
Anaheim is not. They just signed Shattenkirk.
Oh yeah, obviously, dumbass. Does Rob Blake count in LA?
I did not count Rob Blake.
No, they signed Mark Alt anyway.
They did. Exactly. Yeah. It's he's deep
Vegas
now.
I don't think Vegas has one now that Stasny's gone.
No, they do. They have Waz's favorite defenseman still.
Oh yeah, of course. I always forget Nick Holden is there.
It's so hard, dude. When I was going through and looking at this because I was just curious, I was like, oh yeah, that guy and this guy.
Yeah. I feel like Minnesota's a pretty good answer, but it's only kind of because their AHL team is like the entire coaching staff.
Yeah, his Avs people. Yeah.
It's like Alex Tanguay and Tim Army and like.
Yep. Minnesota is correct though. There are no NHL players that are ex-Avs.
Okay.
So that's the Central Division 1.
There's 3 Pacific, and I got them all wrong.
Yep.
I knew LA wasn't one of them.
Arizona, Calgary, Vancouver are the Pacific Division teams that don't have any. Edmonton having Tyson Barrie now. San Jose reacquiring Matt Nieto. And that's it. I was a little surprised that I thought for sure that.
Well, and Seattle getting a jump on claiming Colorado already with poaching Ryan Clark.
Yeah, that's true too.
To go and cover them for the Athletic, and I texted Ryan this morning when I saw the news and congratulated him. But we're nice. We're the nice guys these days. So again, just shouting out Ryan Clark and how awesome it was to have him on the Avs beat for the last couple of years. How cool it was having him around, and just a very different personality, a very different vibe. Daters and Chambers and I are all kind of strong personalities.
Sure.
And that's led to, as you guys all know, that's led to clashes in the past. And Ryan he just showed up and was like, I just want to
cover some hockey.
I'm just here to hang out and watch hockey and write about it, guys. I'm not here for any of your drama. And it was kind of liberating because it kind of gave me permission to care less about the stuff that I thought was a big deal. And he brought a different kind of professional vibe to things, just a different approach to the beat, and we'll always be appreciative of getting to just watch him and watch how he operated, because it was different, for me, and just the background that I have where I didn't go to J school and I didn't, I was not trained to do this. I kind of just got dropped into this and was like, well, you happen to have enough writing talent to get by, so go make it up, kid. And, having a guy like Clarkey around to really just get to observe and learn things from was interesting. I'm the Athletics hiring internally. So a couple people hit me up today and were like, is one of you guys going to go to the Athletic? And I was like, nah.
Even if I wanted to, they would laugh me out of the room.
Yeah, right. Like, even if I had an interest, they would be like, no, we do actual journalism here. I don't know what you guys do over there, but no. Like that. So, they would not have taken either one of us seriously. So you guys don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
But just wanted to give him love because he's an awesome dude and we're going to miss him around these parts. I'm sure whoever they get will be dope and it'll be cool, but they won't be Ryan. So they're going to suffer in comparison. It's like the guy to follow Patrick Waugh, poor David Abisher.
Yep. Yep.
He actually had a pretty decent career until he didn't. Yep.
And pretty decent is basically trash heap compared to Patrick Waugh.
Yeah, compared to the expectations set. Ryan has set the bar very high for the next person, and
Yep, exactly that.
I'm gonna make life absolutely miserable for that person. I'm gonna be such a jerk to them.
Sup, rookie?
Yeah, exactly. Who are you, new guy? I met Ryan at the draft in Dallas. He was just sitting there and he was like, I sat down next to him and he looked over at the tag and saw that we were still BSN Denver.
Yep.
And he was like, oh, you cover the Avs? And I was like, yeah. He's like, oh, I'm Ryan Clark. I'm with the Athletic. We're going to be best friends now. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, is it cool if you go away for this entire thing? Because I want Jesse to sit next to me and not you, guy I don't know. And he was like, no. I was like, all right, I can respect that. And then Jesse got to hang out with Bob McKenzie the whole draft. So
nice.
I guess Jesse he had a good time in Dallas.
Seems like you got the short end of that stick. No offense to Clark, but
yeah. Yeah. It was cool getting to know him, though.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
It was fun. Like it was a cool introduction. So, gonna miss him around these parts.
We'll see.
They'll get somebody else.
I'm sure. Yeah.
They'll get somebody else, and he'll come back around when the Kraken come to town.
There you go. I guess that's going to about wrap it up for our show today. But thank you, everyone, for watching, listening, however you consume the podcast. You all know how it goes. Of course, our sponsor, DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 rated sportsbook app out there, bringing you all of the amazing sports bets with their odds boosts every single day. You can always get in on a good bet. And for Week 7, as far as the NFL is concerned, is pretty soon. MLB will be over too, and we'll be back to just the NFL on TV. DraftKings Sportsbook is giving you a bunch of awesome offers. The $1,000 bonus when you sign up a new account with code DNVR is continuing on for a little bit longer. So you can get yourself $1,000 matched for your deposit and first bet when you jump on in and get in on this sports betting if you have not yet. Whether that's football, UFC, table tennis, European basketball, whatever you want to watch, whatever you want to bet on, you absolutely can. So download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code DNVR when you sign up to get that $1,000. Again, promo code DNVR. Make sure you're hitting that up. Supporting our partners is supporting us, so let them know that we sent you over there. It must be 21 or older, Colorado only. Bonus comprised of a first deposit bonus and first bet match each up to $500. Deposit requires 25x playthrough. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. And on that note, make sure to send us your jersey pictures. We've already got a bunch of amazing ones. And get your rosters ready over on Cap Friendly as well for our Free Skate Friday show. If you want to be roasted, if you want your jerseys to get shown off, send them our way. We will talk to y'all tomorrow.